Start any time, right? Okay, so thanks everyone for coming. It's great to have you guys here to be able to share my ideas with. And I think this is actually the largest number of adults I've had in one place who are interested in hearing about it. So thank you. It does mean a lot to me because it's been kind of a new project and there's been a lot of ups and downs. So having people who are actually interested is great. Oh, and I should mention, because it's filming me, I hope no one has a problem with me filming this and putting it on my YouTube channel, because I don't have something yet where I explain the project like I'm going to be doing to you guys. Does anyone mind if I film the audience to show how many amazing people are here watching me?
You want us to react in a louder way?
Oh, yeah, clap! And I believe this audience is almost all from different countries, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys are both from England, but we have Germany, Sri Lanka, Italy, Japan, US, Ghana, Austria, and I just met Julia today, so I have no idea. Germany, okay, so a different country than Austria, good. It's a good thing we didn't have Alexander come. Okay, so like I said in my brief announcement yesterday, the whole idea of the project is that I grew up in Canada. I learned a bunch of science there. I learned how to teach science there. And then I went to the UK, England, and then Scotland, and was exposed to all different ideas, all new labs. There was a lot of crossover because science is pretty universal. But then went to France and there were new ideas still. And I started thinking, science is pretty universal, but the ways we teach it vary a lot. And I started wondering about that and also started thinking, wouldn't it be great to gather as many ideas as possible from as many different places as possible? And when I thought about it more, I came up with the example that I call the disease model for the spread of ideas. And that if a teacher is trying to teach a specific concept, they'll either catch an idea that's out there already or develop something new, maybe from an existing strain. If it works well, then they'll share the idea, usually at their own school first or with people they know. And if it works well, then it'll keep spreading and spreading, first in a local area, and it'll take a bit more time to jump across barriers, whether from one school district to another, one language to another, one country to another. So we have these pockets of different sets of common experience or different sets of ideas. And I thought, wouldn't it be great if I go to as many different ones as possible, gather as many ideas I can use at my own school, and try and share them forward sort of as a vector for the transmission of good ideas. So it's kind of with that founding principle that I started the project. I started last year, because last year was also just over a decade I'd been living in France. I've been away from Canada a long time, and I wanted to go back and see the country I was from. It was also Canada's 150th anniversary, so there were celebrations all across the country. So I decided, why not get a bicycle and bike across Canada and try and meet educators across the whole country. Hey, come on in, thanks for coming.
Hello.
Excellent, more people from 2 more countries.
Yay.
New Zealand and Greece, right?
Yes, front.
Up to you, front, back, side. So yeah, in the early part of the project, to bike across Canada, of course, I started in San Francisco. As everyone knows, that's almost in Canada. And I was at the Exploratorium, and if you don't know them and their Teacher Institute yet, they're an amazing resource. I'll be showing you 1 or 2 of their things briefly, but they've got a mind-blowing team at their Teacher Institute whose whole purpose is to improve science education or come up with new ideas, new activities, new methods for teaching science and making it exciting and fun. So that was a great place to start. Set off through California, Oregon, Washington, then across Canada, meeting a couple dozen educators along the way, having the chance to film about a dozen hands-on science activities in various places I went. And then I got back to Europe last November in Paris, and I started thinking, Europe's so much more densely packed with different cultures, different ideas, different experiments, different activities, so I really should continue the project here. Unfortunately, you guys might know that the French, or especially Parisians, aren't necessarily known to be an exceptionally welcoming people with ideas like this. So I had a really hard time actually getting people in Paris to want to collaborate with me on this project or to want to share ideas with me. Part of that, though, isn't something cultural. It's also the new guy theory, or the new guy principle, where if you're new somewhere, even if you have no other inherent value. Just being someone new is interesting. So if I'm biking through a country and I say, hey, I'm here, I've shown up from Paris, people say, ooh, Paris, that's interesting. Whereas in Paris, it really doesn't have that same effect. So there was a bit of a lag period until January. I thought, okay, got to do something, got to get out of Paris. So I went for a long weekend to Madrid, sent out maybe 20 different emails, still expecting, the 10 to 20% response rate, and managed to meet a couple really inspiring science educators there. They gave me contacts for the rest of Spain, and then I was kind of set to bike across Spain in April, which I'll get to in a minute with the cross-European bike trip.
So Michael, who's sponsoring this project? Is it?
No one, which is another sort of point behind why I'm traveling by bicycle. Not only do I like riding my bike, but it's kind of the cheapest place to go from one place to another. So actually, the last year I was only working part-time to have more time for this project, although I didn't know it would turn into this project. It's sort of a work in progress and continually developing. I just knew I wanted to do something looking at school or education beyond the classroom. So I also tried volunteering at UNESCO. It took them 3 months of saying, yeah, probably you'd be great for this, to eventually say, oh, actually we're too busy. So I'm not a huge fan of the organization of UNESCO or their communication for a number of reasons. But there are also a number of other things I was looking into, like volunteering at museums in Paris, but surprisingly most museums there don't have any sort of volunteer program. And even if you're an experienced teacher who says, look, I have all these ideas from all around the world I want to share with you guys, they say, well,
No.
yeah, but do you have this diploma to be a museum presenter in France? No, it doesn't matter if you want to work for free, we're not interested in that. So, there were a number of setbacks. Again, the 10 to 20% acceptance rate, most people I pitched it to really didn't care what I was doing or what I wanted to do even for free. So yeah, no sponsorship, extremely low budget. Things like when I was going through Finland last, I guess 2 weeks ago, the only people who got back to me after sending out like 10 different emails to different places directed me to their education tourism department, where they charge you 1,200 euros to visit a couple of schools. And that was more than my entire budget getting from Paris to Finland, having met maybe 10 different educators, filming 5 different ones along the way. So just in terms of the cost of traveling, actually riding a bike, there's maintenance costs and stuff. A lot of the time I'm just camping wherever I can camp for free, sometimes campsites which often run 5 to 15 euros each, often staying with people, sometimes hostels which run like 10 to 30 euros. But really comparable accommodation costs to rent in Paris, and I'm subletting my apartment, so it kind of balances each other out, although it ends up being sometimes a lot of work or stress wondering where I'll be able to stay each night or finding a place. And, it's a decent amount of work there, but it's more than a worthwhile investment. Does that kind of make sense for where the money comes from for it?
Yeah.
But also, I'm accepting kind of being poor for the time being, considering it like an investment in myself. Briefly showing the map of North America, so San Francisco to Canada, across Canada, stopping a number of places along the way, and then over to Europe and the Iberian Peninsula. And all of these spots are places I saved in my phone for where I was meeting a science educator or things like that, so that's why there's a lot of dots here in Europe. So Madrid, February, got contacts all around Spain, ended up meeting a bunch as I biked through from Portugal through Spain, on my way to France, going up to Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, Sweden. Good thing I'm tall and I can reach that high. Sweden, the Åland Islands, which are Finnish but they speak Swedish, Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, and my bike's at Sergey's. Before I'll continue after CERN, 2 days after I leave here, pick up my bike, go to Warsaw, back to school for a couple of weeks to start off the school year, then pick up my bike in Warsaw and make my way down here somewhere, but I still need to plan out the details
So
for
you went to
that.
Moscow as well?
Yes, not with the bicycle.
Okay.
But that was it was because of an invitation to the Joint Institute of Nuclear Research. I'll explain a little bit more about that in the chronological order after Madrid. But now I want to show you guys my YouTube channel, which is the main way I introduce my project to try and communicate with other people about what I'm doing here. So when possible, or when time and energy and sort of shyness or lack thereof permit, I like to make videos of the different activities and experiments that people share with me. The idea being it's easier to share them forwards that way, and it's not necessarily people that I always directly meet that way. Although the most effective way of sharing ideas, I find, is person-to-person communication. So as much as anything else, then all these videos serve as an introduction of who I am and what I hope to do when I eventually meet people. I'm not pretending that, or like thinking that there will be tons of people watching these videos and being fascinated and being like, okay, I'll do all of this. Hopefully some of them will work for getting ideas into the classroom, but a lot of it is encouraging people to contact me, or so that we can actually talk things through and have more meaningful learning experiences. So if you have a look at my YouTube channel, you'll see there's a number of videos with flags according to countries, and there's a playlist section where each country, I've done a playlist of videos in that country. Some only have one for the moment. Like Andorra is a tiny country, and that's actually one of the ones no one actually got back to me, but they had a really cool open-air rock museum in the capital city, and so that was worth walking around showing my interpretation of the rocks. But you'll see I've filmed things in Russia, Portugal, Spain, Argentina. If we scroll over, US, Canada, France. Only 4 things published in France, even though I live there. A bit of a shame. And there's a handful of other countries that I haven't yet gotten to because I'm fairly far behind on video editing. I also have a playlist of bike updates because it's kind of interesting for some people to hear about the bike aspect of the travel. So showing changing scenery, architecture as I go through different countries. About once a week I try and put a bunch of photos and videos from the bike into that. Let's see, where was I going? Oh yeah, my favorite example of this project really working and me thinking, okay, this is something that's really cool and I'm learning a lot and some people are learning from me as well, came from that weekend in Madrid I was talking about. And I met Tanya, the National History of Natural Science there. And one of the many things she showed me was the use of dental alginate for molding fossils. And so they'd take these fossilized shells, they'd mix up a cup of this alginate powder, which at the dentist's office they mix and they put into something the shape of your mouth. You bite down on it, and then you stay still for a couple of minutes and you have a mold of your teeth, which then they use for prosthetics or whatnot. And so it needs to set very quick because you don't want someone sitting there for a long time biting on it. And it needs to be non-toxic because it's going in someone's mouth. So they were using this at the museum, and kids could instantly unmold a mold of whatever fossil they were dealing with. And I thought this was great. So already before I left Madrid, I was like, okay, I got to get some of this material. I got to test this out in Paris. But on the plane, I thought, can I do even better? If it's non-toxic, then I could put food in it. So I could melt some chocolate, fill the mold with chocolate, and kids could have their own copy of fossils that we were dealing with. So got off the plane, ordered alginate as soon as I got home, got it express shipped from Amazon, got it like 2 days later, went to the grocery store, bought a bunch of chocolate, grabbed a handful of fossilized shells because everyone has 42 million year old Parisian shells lying around the lab. We do a visit to a sand pit, so we have tons. And then by the end of that week, had tested out with a group of students, sent photos and the story back to the woman at the museum, Tanya, and she was eager about it. So it wasn't just me going there asking, can you share me your ideas? But I was actually feeding things back, and together we were able to make something new that, to my knowledge, no one had been doing before, and was a pretty cool activity to do. So there's a video on that. That's one of the French ones, but I won't show you all the videos because I'm here and I can talk to you in person. And if you're interested in seeing it, you can watch at your own time. The next thing I want to show you is just a bit of a preview of videos to come, because I've been kind of busy traveling around, meeting new people, filming things, and I'm several months behind in my video editing. So to give you a sort of sense of what's out there, it's also kind of exciting to show you what I haven't yet published. So last night I sat around putting together a clip show of some of the things I'm actively working on, and then I thought, well, that's kind of cool, I'll share that on my channel. So it's actually the new channel trailer. So if we go to my channel's homepage, then the new trailer that pops up and automatically reads is this clip show that I'm about to show you. Hi, I'm in CERN, the European Center for Nuclear Research in Geneva, Switzerland, participating in their amazing International Teacher Week program. Thanks, Jeff, you're amazing. Stay curious and keep sharing in my adventure. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a sense of sort of what kinds of activities have been shared with me, what things are like on there. And those are ones that will probably take me several more weeks or potentially months to actually finish editing and get online. I don't know if many of you have done much video editing, but it's amazing how much time it takes to put things together. For an example of like why it takes so much time, if you take like the cloud chamber thing we did the other day, and it took maybe an hour to do that. I forget how much time we had, but like an hour or 45 minutes worth of footage. If I want, before I even start making a 5-minute video out of it, to look at all the footage, to do a preliminary deciding what I'll use, what I won't use, that's already an hour I've spent on a 5-minute video. But then if I go through watching a second time cutting it, I might get it down to maybe 30 minutes of what's the most important half. But then already I've spent at least 2 hours for a 5-minute video. And then if I want to do anything else like effects, and like I'm getting a lot quicker with things, but having like 2 screens on at the same time, using the sound from one, slowing one down, other things like that, all of that ends up, so it takes on average about 5 to 10 hours for like a 5-minute video or so. And so having footage from a bunch of amazing countries, like there's I think 5 countries I haven't even really touched the footage of yet, and I don't know where I'm going to find the time to do it, but I will, because it's something that I love, and I'll stay up all night some nights doing it if I have to.
Which program do you use?
iMovie, which I wouldn't recommend unless, like myself last summer, it's kind of your first time doing any video editing and you're teaching yourself. It's a good like starting program, but very quickly you run into some pretty serious limitations or problems with it. Like some for having different clips together or sound syncing, it's a little bit of a hassle or clunky. One thing I still haven't figured out, and last night it took me like half an hour to put the titles of where different things were, because the text keeps changing format and messing up, and I don't know how to fix that problem. But the biggest problem for using it for any sort of large video project rather than just a couple of home videos is how the iMovie library works, and it makes an enormous file that has a copy of all the media that you've used in that video. And so if you're dealing with a lot of different videos and getting stuff from one to another, you end up having these huge library files which you can divide. But if you use something from one library in another video, and then you go to like if you move that video off of your hard drive because you need more space, then you no longer have that media in the new video. So yeah, when I find the time, I'm going to learn at least one other program that's a lot better for that. But yeah, for now I use iMovie. So for me, the most interesting thing when someone presents ideas like this is to actually see stuff live and to get to like touch it or do things like that. So that's why I've gathered together a couple of equipment, largely scrounged from the hotel kitchen and from Jeff's office supply cupboard. So the first one I want to show you guys is the one you saw at the University of Valencia with the Scotch tape. So in preparation, I have already 2 lines of tape here, so you don't need to watch me carefully taping it out, because that's kind of a boring step. But if I take it off, and actually, does anyone feel like being a volunteer to help with this? If no one does, I do have multiple hands, but...
Come on.
So you can take this piece of tape, and it should pick up an electric charge as I'm taking it off, which is the same as turboelectric charging from rubbing, and if we approach them now, they should have the same charge and should repel.
They are repelling, yeah.
Now that's interesting and that's neat, but there's only so far you can go with that. The next step, you might notice these are actually double strips of tape. Before we take them apart, we want to decharge them. So we'll just touch them a lot to ground them. And if that doesn't work, I have two that are hanging there that should have discharged over the time that I've been talking. But if this is discharged, then we can either test them against each other, or if it doesn't attract the wall, it's only slight attraction to the wall. I'd say they're discharged enough. Let's rip them apart. Remember which one was the top, like sticky side up.
Sticky side up.
Or no, sorry, sticky side. Whatever I want to call the top or down.
Yeah.
Smooth side, out. I have in my right hand.
Sticky side in.
And the smooth side out, sticky side in should repel, because it should pick up the same charge.
So it's
Smooth side towards
so
me.
smooth,
Is it
sticky.
smooth side towards me?
wow.
Well,
That is
no,
so
smooth towards
smooth,
you.
Sticky.
Like when it was sandwiched, that was the one with the sticky side outwards, right?
Yeah.
And the sticky side in, they should repel.
Yeah.
Sticky side out, they should repel,
Yeah.
and then these should attract. So that's like a cool, quick intro to static electricity.
Awesome.
And then a couple more static electricity things,
Great one.
partly because they're easy to do. Oh, and thank you. Let's give John a hand.
Best, I'd say.
But yeah, we'll move on from that one just for now. 2015, when I was at the Exploratorium for their summer institute, and they have this competition kind of modeled after the Iron Chef competition. It's the Iron Science Teacher. And competing in that, I did that same demonstration, mentored by Paul Doherty. So here I have two drinking straws, which I'm charging up in my hair. And this one, I really like this demonstration because this is one a student taught me. And like with a lot of projects, I assign my students, this isn't a table, so it's not flat.
It's not flat.
So I'll do it next to the computer. With like 12-year-olds or so, teaching about electricity, one of the projects as I assigned them was to make or put together a demonstration that they try at home and come in and wow me and try and do something I haven't seen before. But this one kid came up with this straw trick that I'd never seen before. And it worked so well, so hopefully it'll work today. If not, it's just the humidity.
Yes.
It will work. Yeah, we've done that with coolers. That's the cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it does work.
That's a lot weaker than I was hoping, but yeah, it's working for the most part.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a cool one.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's the room.
It's working.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
You
working.
know, it's working, but I want it to work really well and to be like, oh wow.
Yeah,
And
it does
yeah,
work.
see, that's the
yeah,
other
with
thing.
your hand.
It can induce a big enough charge on your
Yeah.
hand, and so you get a lot of false positives for induced charge. But after that student showed me how to do this, from the very next week onwards, I changed my intro to static electricity with the classes I was doing from then. And getting back to the humidity point, I was volunteer teaching in Cambodia a year and a half ago, and they're saying, oh yeah, we can't do electrostatics because it's too humid here. I said, well, just give me a straw, I'll show you. And very humid day, I show it to them, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Now we can teach static electricity in Cambodia.
Michael, sorry to interrupt. The cool thing is use the same straw with a V can. You put a V can, neutral metal can,
Yeah.
and you can actually use the straw to roll it.
Oh yeah. Or to roll a can, you can pick up more charge if you use a piece of PVC pipe, and PVC can pick up a lot of
A
charge.
lot of charge, and you can roll the can.
Yeah, so that's a really good way to do that as well. So the Exploratorium Teacher Institute Snacks portal, they have hundreds, I'd say hundreds, low number of hundreds of different activities you can do like this. Most that you can make pretty cheaply, like I just grabbed stuff from the kitchen like they're showing here. Although, yeah, the neon glow tube, that's a little bit specialized, but dirt cheap if you order it online. If you're lucky enough to be somewhere like the States, you can order it on Amazon. If you're in Europe, Conrad Electronics is probably the best supplier for that, although there's a good Swiss company who doesn't like shipping to France, who also supplies them. but yeah, they're a really handy little tool. But you can see they have a video where Paul's explaining how to do it. So you can see a video of that. Or if you want to see me, an iron science teacher, then there I am. and my costume actually ends up being part of it because I end up using the sweater to charge up the styrofoam blocks, and then when I'm looking for something made of wool that could charge even better, the beret ends up being what I use to charge up the Eiffel Tower. So that's a video of me doing that, but that's not one I made specifically as part of this current project. So that's the Exploratorium Snacks Portal. Oh, straws. Small tangent on straws, because it was slightly difficult to obtain straws. And there's a movement to get rid of the use of straws because they're not good for the environment and they're considered unnecessary. But my question to that, like my standard answer to that is, well, who's using them to drink beverages? I mean, yeah, if that's all you're doing, it's wasteful, but there's so many other things you can do with the straw. Like you just saw one. And I have a couple of pictures that I want to show you of other cool things that I like to do with straws. So it might become like incandescent light bulbs where you'll end up needing to buy a bunch of straws to stockpile for using for future years. This, you can see, this is actually a tube, but I often do this with a straw. This is my beer bottle thermometer, which is one of my favorite ones because it was actually something I came up with the idea for. The first time I was volunteer teaching anywhere, I was in Peru, and I was trying to make up some equipment, very basic stuff for primary school, and the people running the organization where I was weren't really interested in science anyways, so I didn't really make much there, but I got thinking about different projects and about when I was going back to Paris at the end of a sabbatical year then. And I had this idea for something I called the Homemade Lab Project, where our goal was, with students working together, to make a lab equipment for free or very cheaply, largely from what we could find in a garbage or recycling bin, to try and promote hands-on science education in contexts where it might not be so easy otherwise. So some of the contexts were very directly in Paris. If I say, go home and do this at home, I'm not going to give them all the glassware or all the other stuff from the lab. They've got to deal with what they can find from around home, and I don't want them to go buy things. So in a very direct context at the school, it was useful, but then also in faraway contexts, like where I've been trying to teach in other parts of the world. Sometimes I've been in a classroom like here in Cambodia where they don't have a lot of equipment, so it's useful to have these ideas as well. So that was kind of like my go-to to like pitch it to students, and they see, usually I'd use a flask rather than a beer bottle or like some other glass bottle. But you can see the level goes up just with the heat from your hands because it's a gas thermometer. If anyone's interested in seeing that, buy me a beer so we can have the bottle, and I'm happy to show this to you. However, the cork, I literally spent 3 or 4 hours trying to get this cork watertight for it. So if anyone, like maybe school lab might have a one-hole bung they could lend me, if not, I'll look around or source something else. I've other solutions I've come to make it watertight, but like, that's the only finicky part of that. And that's like a close-up so you can see just from the gas in the beer bottle. And the balloon was kind of my like new addition to the design I thought of while I was in Peru, and I was like, that way we can have it portable, it doesn't need to stay upright, it won't spill over, we can take it around and we can like leave it in the lab for a prolonged period of time where the expansion of the gas pushes the liquid and we have a variation level there. And it's one that, like, if you haven't used a similar model to this, because, well, I don't know of anyone else making it out of beer bottles, but like flasks in the lab, that's a relatively common experiment in British schools I've been in. You can also use it for a measurement of absolute zero, and it's pretty good. You can get like 5 to 10% level of precision extrapolating to absolute zero, where the gas will have zero volume, without needing to be that finicky in all of your measurements. Another cool use of drinking straws that kind of segues to the end of, that's just more Cambodia buying PVC pipe, making things with them. Another use of drinking straws, a mechanical robot hand thing. You guys might be familiar with the viral YouTube videos that popularized this idea a couple of years ago. If not, it's pretty simple and cool and uses drinking straws. But a cool reason why I'm showing you that picture is because this was done just in June in my school, where I have this group. These are 3 of the so far 7. I'm hoping to recruit up to like 20 maybe students this year. And these are high school students in a program I call YES, for Young Enthusiastic Scientists. Weird acronyms, kind of like at CERN. But my YES volunteers who develop hands-on science activities to share with the younger school students down below, which is a cool way of sharing ideas with a greater public than just students who are directly in front of me in a room at any given time. So that comes to finishing up with where I'm going with this project, or what the next steps are, because it's a work in progress that I'm developing all the time. So one of the biggest things is to continue what I'm doing so far, so seeking out other ideas from other educators. In this room there's a bunch of educators, maybe some of you have ideas to share with me. There's a lot of great things that I can learn just from you telling me ideas, like I picked up a cool idea for a Lorentz force measuring one from John when we were discussing earlier this week. That wasn't even in the context of, hey, teach me something. Came up in discussion, which is great when you get teachers from different places together. But of course, if anyone feels like being the star of one of my new videos, I'd be thrilled to be able to film anyone who's willing to do so. I know most of you probably don't have equipment here, which could be a bit of a barrier for that, although you can see what stuff you can scrounge around. Or maybe someone has a school lab and wants to demonstrate things like that. So that's one of the things I'm looking to do with this project. I'm also looking to get more into schools. If you notice, maybe from the clips of videos I'm working on, or if you look more on my YouTube channel, even though I'm a teacher and like the main idea is getting ideas from other teachers, I haven't had a huge amount of success having teachers participate in the videos, and I have more success at universities and museums. I do have maybe 5 or 10 videos from teachers, but like of the 30 published, 20 are from museums or so, or like 15 from museums, 10 from universities, and like 5 from teachers. So I'm looking at how to get more ideas from teachers. If anyone has any suggestions, please feel free to suggest that to me, but also how to get ideas shared with other people. And I'm looking at trying to propose workshops in different schools. France is close by to me, so in France, but anywhere anyone wants to invite me to come present a bunch of activities to your school, or if you have suggestions of people who might be interested, I'm always happy to do that. And then the other thing is, I was mentioning my YES volunteers at my school, because for me, and that gets to the question of why am I doing this, and I explained a bit at the beginning why I think it's a good idea, but I mean the bigger question, what do I hope to get out of this, or what am I trying to do? And for me, teaching, at least in its purest form, is a way of getting people to go further than you can go yourself. Because no matter how good you are, no matter how many ideas you have, no matter how many great places from around the world are giving you their ideas, if you're invited to CERN, if you're invited to the Exploratorium, if you're invited to a bunch of museums and universities all around the world, there's only so many things that one person can do. But if you teach other people, then you can suddenly expand your sphere of influence. And it's kind of like Yoda. He doesn't just go and take on Darth Vader. He can't do that, but he's an amazing teacher because he teaches his student to go on and face challenges that he's unable to face himself. So it's going a step further than you can. And with people like my YES volunteers, then I use the analogy, everyone knows the saying, well, most people know the saying, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. I extend that, if you teach a man to teach people to fish, they can eat for generations. Or if you teach a bunch of young, eager people to develop new fishing techniques and get so excited about fishing, they'll want to do that in their spare time and do nothing but fishing.
And there'll be no fish left.
Then you better start thinking of global fishing quotas, because in no time we can fish the oceans dry. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So yeah, that's my project. Thanks for Thanks for listening about it. Yeah?
Thank you for.
Who's going to continue with Michael?
Who's going to what?
Who's going to participate in the video?
Yeah.
Do you know the Galileo paper drop? It just came up because Ali was asking a question. It's quite easy to show.
Is it like this?
Yeah, the two are together.
Yes, but I don't have a video on it, so if you'd like to start a video on that, that'd be great. And that'd be a nice